For over a decade, the British press told us that Kate Middleton was the nation's fashion crown jewel, the modern muse who could single-handedly save British brands with a single public appearance. Every coat dress, every clutch, every pair of nude heels was sold as part of the Kate effect. But now, that illusion is falling apart. Fashion houses once blessed by her royal wardrobe are shuttering. Once hyped labels are going into administration. And the so-called Kate economy, built on photo ops, PR headlines and palace myth, is collapsing under its own weight. The question is, was it ever real? Or were we sold a fantasy that the fashion industry desperately wanted to believe in? Let's go back to where it all began. From the moment Kate married into the royal family in 2011, the media anointed her as the best of British fashion. She was portrayed as the royal ambassador of elegance, the woman who could transform any small label into a global success story with nothing more than a single photograph. Magazines praised her every outfit. Tabloids tallied up her looks like sports statistics, and fashion editors rushed to link her choices to surges in sales, often with little concrete evidence to back up the claims. The narrative was intoxicating. Princess Diana for the Instagram age. A royal who could bridge tradition and modernity, who understood the power of fashion diplomacy, who knew exactly which emerging designers needed a boost. In 2021, Seraphine, the brand behind her maternity dresses, made its debut on the stock market with a staggering $150 million valuation. The press credited Kate. Her patronage, they said, had transformed a small boutique label into a maternity empire. When she wore Bennett heels or a Jaeger coat, it was treated like a royal commandment to shop. Websites crashed, waiting lists formed. The story was simple and seductive. Kate wears it, it sells. The modern Midas touch, but make it fashion. Economists even tried to quantify it, claiming the Kate effect was worth hundreds of millions to the British economy. She was fashion's golden goose, and everyone wanted a piece. But behind the glossy headlines was something the media never wanted to admit. It was all smoke and mirrors. A carefully constructed narrative that benefited everyone except, perhaps, the truth. Fast forward to today, and those once celebrated brands are falling like dominoes. Seraphine, the company that once proudly displayed Kate's maternity looks in their marketing materials, went into administration in 2022. That $150 million valuation? Gone. The brand that was supposed to have been saved by royal patronage couldn't survive the realities of post-pandemic retail. Jaeger, the British heritage brand that Kate wore repeatedly, was sold off for a fraction of its former value. The company that had dressed generations of British women, supposedly revitalised by royal attention, couldn't escape administration. And Cefinn, the fashion label founded by Samantha Cameron, wife of former Prime Minister David Cameron, closed its doors earlier this year, despite being championed by both Kate and Queen Camilla. If ever there was a brand with the right connections, the right aesthetic, and the right royal backing, it was Cefinn. And yet it failed. Bennett, another Kate favourite, has cycled through multiple administrations and ownership changes despite years of royal visibility. Even brands she wore occasionally couldn't convert palace exposure into sustainable business. The pattern is undeniable. If royal exposure was truly the magic formula we were promised, these brands should be thriving. But instead, they're gone casualties of an economy where royal photo ops can't compete with global inflation, supply chain disruptions, digital innovation, or shifting consumer values. What's left standing isn't the fashion, it's the fantasy. the myth that refuses to die even as the evidence mounts against it. For over a decade, British fashion journalism worked overtime to sustain the myth of the Kate effect. Articles described her as a commercial powerhouse, crediting her with millions in free publicity. Every outfit was dissected, priced, and praised, no matter how repetitive or conservative it was. Publications built entire verticals around tracking her wardrobe, creating an ecosystem of content that needed the myth to survive. The language was always breathless, always certain. Kate causes selling frenzy. Kate's dress sells out in minutes. Kate boosts British fashion. But how much of this was verified? How much was press release masquerading as journalism? And often these glowing write-ups came at someone else's expense. Meghan, the Duchess of Sussex, was constantly framed as the contrast, the Hollywood Duchess, too glamorous, too modern, too independent, too expensive. Her fashion choices were criticised as extravagant, while Kate's were praised as accessible, even when the price points were nearly identical. The double standard was glaring. Meghan's Givenchy wedding dress was too expensive and French, while Kate's Alexander McQueen gown was perfectly British elegance, despite both being haute couture creations by foreign-born designers. But here's the irony that the press never wanted to acknowledge. While the British media claimed Kate's influence was driving sales and supporting British brands, it's Meghan's collaborations, from fashion capsules with SmartWorks to lifestyle partnerships and her recent ventures, that have produced measurable engagement and actual commercial impact. Her collaborations sold out with verified numbers. Her influence translated into trackable metrics. The data doesn't lie. The Kate effect was always more headline than reality. It was a story the industry wanted to tell itself, a comforting narrative about royal relevance in a rapidly changing world. Now, the narrative is shifting, and the public isn't buying the fairy tale anymore. When the Daily Mail and other tabloids ran their usual stories about Kate's supposed fashion reign, the comments sections told a dramatically different story. The bubble had burst. Readers called her style boring, dated, even church lady chic. Others compared her wardrobe to the Golden Girls, and not in an affectionate, nostalgic way. Comments like, "She dresses like my grandmother," and "Does she own anything that wasn't designed in 1985?" flooded the articles. It wasn't just trolling, it was fatigue. A generation raised on social media and digital fashion, accustomed to influencers who take risks and evolve their style, finds little inspiration in coat dresses and copy-paste looks. They want authenticity, experimentation, personality. They want to see someone who looks like they actually enjoy fashion, not someone following a palace-style manual. Even Project Runway couldn't resist joining in the fashion competition show, mocked her signature silhouette as outdated and uninspired, a relic of a bygone era. Social media fashion communities began creating comparison posts. Kate's repetitive style versus the fashion evolution of other public figures. The contrast was stark. While other style icons experimented, took risks, and showed personality, Kate's wardrobe remained frozen in 2011. What was once described as timeless now feels frozen. The royal aesthetic, static, cautious and predictable, can't keep up with a world that moves fast and demands authenticity over perfection. Fashion critics, who once praised her classic style, began using different words: safe, boring, uninspired. The emperor, it seemed, had no clothes, or at least nothing interesting to wear. And perhaps most tellingly, younger consumers, the demographic that actually drives fashion sales in the digital age, simply weren't paying attention. Kate's style didn't trend on TikTok. It didn't inspire outfit recreations. It didn't generate the kind of organic engagement that translates to commercial success. The Kate effect had become background noise in a culture that had moved on. And it's not just the fashion brands that have crumbled under the weight of myth and expectation. Even the Middleton family's own ventures, built on that same carefully cultivated image of wholesome reliability and upper-middle-class charm, collapsed under financial pressure. Party Pieces, the family's flagship business run by Kate's parents, went into administration in 2023 with millions in unpaid debts. This was the company that had sustained the family for years, that had paid for Kate's education and lifestyle before her royal marriage. It had every advantage: name, recognition, media attention, royal connections. And yet it failed. James Middleton's gifting company, Boomf, folded soon after, unable to convert family fame into sustainable revenue. These aren't isolated failures. They're symptoms of a much larger truth that the press has been reluctant to confront. Royal visibility does not equal business viability. Press photography does not equal profit. And curated image does not equal influence, at least not the kind of influence that translates into sales, brand loyalty, or long-term commercial success. The Middleton family story is particularly revealing because it shows that proximity to Kate, that direct connection to the supposed Kate effect, couldn't save businesses that lacked strong fundamentals. If her own family's companies couldn't leverage her image into success, what does that say about the broader myth? It suggests that the Kate effect was always about perception management, not market reality. It was a story told by an industry desperate for a fairy tale, in a media landscape that preferred narrative over numbers. The Kate effect was always about illusion, the idea that a smile, a dress, and a headline could sustain an empire of influence. But in 2025, that illusion is cracking under the weight of reality. The data is out. The brands are gone. The comment sections have turned. And the audience, once dazzled by the promise of royal perfection, is waking up to reality. Fashion is moving forward, driven by digital innovation, sustainability concerns, inclusivity, and authentic connection. Culture is evolving, demanding more than carefully staged photo opportunities and recycled coat dresses. But the myth of royal style, built on outdated ideals and press spin, is stuck in the past. It belongs to an era when magazine covers and newspaper photographs could create commercial success, when royal approval meant guaranteed sales, when the public was willing to accept curated perfection without question. That era is over. And perhaps that's the greatest irony of all, that the palace and the press spent years trying to sell the Kate effect, building an elaborate mythology around wardrobe choices and brand partnerships, when the only thing it truly managed to keep alive was the illusion itself. The brands failed, the businesses closed, the myth persisted, until now.